You know what's interesting these days? Bitcoin.
Cut. What if we get him?
You know what's interesting these days? Bitcoin. Look for Bitwise, my friends.
And so it has begun. Bitwise may have just launched one of the most epic Bitcoin ad campaigns of all time. And of course, they brought in the most interesting man for the most interesting technology. As Max Kaiser said, it's the story of the decade, the story of the century. But Jonathan Goldsmith stars in Bitwise's advertisement. And guys, they didn't stop there. It looks like Bitwise also has some dank memes. Here we go. He only pays for pizza with Bitcoin like a true G. Bold hot take. He told Satoshi to hodl. What the hell is going on? What does all this mean? Well, obviously, the ETFs are nearing the launch date. Even bigger is this grand awakening taking place. From Bitcoin Archive, Bitcoin has established itself as a serious asset, and that is from The Economist. And we're starting to see, I don't know, a lot of similarities from projections, and let me show you a little bit of that. First, The Economist. All this is showing that if you don't like Bitcoin, Liz, it doesn't matter because it's not going away. Bitcoin is like a cockroach. It's gonna outlast all of us, and especially you, Liz. But with everything going on, you might want to get some just in case because, well, we got Samson Mao saying $1 million Bitcoin is in play. And just like The Economist, well, this is coming from the guy who was stacking his balls off before it was cool for the rest of you institutional guys. But Michael Saylor's been saying it, and everyone is coming around. Bitcoin is an institutional grade asset, and it's destined for $1 million. And joining Giga Chad, Samson Mao, the slew of others you've been hearing from the past week and a half, Swan CEO Cory Klippsten is still convinced that Bitcoin is headed to $1 million. Hey, what's going on? What's got everybody so bullish? Bitcoin's going to $1 million. I know, you're like, there's no way it can get any more bullish, but it turns out it can. The Grayscale CEO just came out and said that the ETF is going to unlock $30 trillion of wealth on the sidelines, now with the ability to acquire and get exposure to Bitcoin through the ETF. I think things are heating up. I guess you could say things are getting pretty interesting. We got a lot of bullish news to cover. Let's get it.
Party, that party. Yeah, come and have a good time with G.O.D.
Welcome back. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler signaling that the agency is taking a, quote, new look at spot Bitcoin ETF applications. They incorporate insights from recent court decisions, Gensler says, that the SEC is currently processing between 8 and 12 filings for the ETFs. Joining me right now is Grayscale CEO Michael Sonnenschein. Michael, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much for being here. So what do you think is going to happen here? Grayscale is one of about 12 firms to apply for a spot Bitcoin ETF in the middle of lots of changes in terms of regulations for this area of the market. What are you expecting?
That's right. What is the news with the ETF? Well, let's go ahead and get to it and see what the Grayscale CEO has to say. Pretty bullish.
Well, you know, Joe, I'm not one to make price predictions, but I do think there is a lot of optimism again in the market. I think a lot of investors are adding Bitcoin to their portfolios. And when we look ahead to the hopeful approval for spot Bitcoin ETFs, it really is going to unlock the opportunity to a part of the investment community that, for better or worse, but I would say for worse, has unfortunately been locked out of the opportunity to participate in having Bitcoin exposure in their portfolios. So we're really talking about the advised market here in the US, which is today about $30 trillion worth of advised wealth that we hope the approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs, the uplisting of GBTC, will allow for that opportunity and for those investors to partake in it as well.
And now let's go ahead and kind of put this in perspective, because you're like, man, that's a shitload of money. That's a lot of capital. What's it going to do to Bitcoin's market cap? And MD Bitcoin went ahead and did some math. So he's saying, estimating new Bitcoin price after $30 trillion injection. Current market cap, $830.2 billion. Injection, $30 trillion. Bitcoin in circulation, 18.9. New price, new market cap, 18.9 million. The result, with a 1.5x multiplier, Bitcoin to 184,000 4x multiplier, nearing half a milli, and with a 10% conversion rate, 1.5x multiplier, 304,000 4x multiplier, getting real close to that $1 million mark. And these calculations, according to MB, illustrate the potential impact on Bitcoin's market cap and price with the assumed conversion rates and subsequent multipliers. And as he said, this is an extremely conservative approach. At the end of the day, it's probably nothing, guys. Probably not bullish at all. We're probably not going to the moon. Actually, guys, we'll be going to the moon with or without Larry Fink and the gang, because this is a known fact. Fiat will go to zero over time against Bitcoin. It's just 10th grade math. And if you're doubting me, go ahead and check that out. How much is US under debt now? That's 33.8 trillion. The goose is cooked. I'd opt out of that bullshit as fast as possible. And it looks like everyone is. Adding to the bullishness, we had the big options expiry, and Bitcoin leverage drops to historical lows. That, on top of the news, the macro environment, definitely aiding in that little pump you've seen today. But hey, Grayscale is all fine and stuff. Let's go ahead and get to some things Saylor had to say the other day on Bitcoin going to $1 million and why it is the Treasury Reserve asset.
You know, we welcome fair value accounting. It's gonna create much more transparency and clarity in P&Ls and balance sheets for any companies that are holding Bitcoin. I think the real significance is that there are companies like Berkshire Hathaway and Apple Computer that have $100 billion plus in cash. And right now they have to invest it in treasuries and sovereign debt. And with this change in fair value accounting, you're going to have a commodity that's valued as fair value, and it becomes a legitimate Treasury Reserve asset for publicly traded companies.
I do want to get your thoughts, though, on Bitcoin and the rally we've seen just in the last 2 months or so, since early October, up something like 56%. What do you attribute that rally to?
You know, we're going through a digital transformation of everything. Apple represents a digital transformation of telephones and cameras, and Google's the transformation of books and libraries. Bitcoin represents the digital transformation of capital. 99.9% of the capital in the world is tied up in real estate and stocks and precious metals and bonds. And so we're 0.1% transformed. People, as they get educated on digital assets, are realizing that they ought to be allocating more and more of their capital to this digital asset. And so they're moving from 0.1 to 0.2%. And I think that's really driving the trend. I've said before, if Bitcoin's not going to zero, it's going to $1 million. The real question is it legitimate asset? If it's a legitimate institutional asset, everybody is underallocated to it.
And things are just, it looks like the finishing bows, the finishing touches. BlackRock has bent the knee to the SEC's cash-only model, not in kind, but looking like 90 to 99% done on the ETF approval front. We've had tons of updates and amendments, with James Seifert and Balchunas of Bloomberg echoing, we are in the final stretch. And that, guys, how bullish this is, right? These could be all approved within the next, week and a half by January 10th. So buckle up and prepare yourselves. And also, remember, you don't buy an ETF. That's not Bitcoin. We know who's going to buy those things, but that's not for you. That is not for the plebs. Self-custody is the revolution. Now, who is the custodian here for just about all these people? Coinbase, and then we have a Gemini. Fidelity looking pretty based right there. Self-custody, okay, I like that. But the rest of these guys, I kind of see a single point of failure. And I think we can all agree Brian Armstrong is not a real Bitcoiner. But the DCA army stays winning. 70 to 80% of supply has not moved in a year, and addresses holding greater than 1 Bitcoin have hit a new all-time high. Things are getting majorly bullish, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't got your Bitcoin off exchanges and into self-custody, keeping those Satoshis frosty, you better get it done. And if you need help with any of that, we got just the guys to get you covered. When you have this most scarce, most desirable property on the planet, you want to make sure you're securing it. And whether you're just getting started with Bitcoin or further down the rabbit hole, the Bitcoin Way is here to help you wherever you are in your journey. As your dedicated Bitcoin IT team, the Bitcoin Way is here to guide you start to finish on your journey to properly self-custody your Bitcoin. What's more, they've recently introduced 100% privacy-focused collaborative custody services where you're going to benefit from advanced multi-sig security, inheritance planning, and much more while remaining 100% in control. Looking to get started? Go ahead and book a free 30-minute call using that link below. Guys, Bitwise, that was just the beginning of this advertising frenzy that is about to go bananas. Remember, BlackRock owns 70-80% of the media. A lot of that money on the sidelines is going to go into advertising. What I did like about the ad was it wasn't promoting some exchange or something like that. It was more so promoting what? The underlying asset, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin cufflinks. Very nice. And everyone seems to be echoing that whether Grayscale, BlackRock, ARK Invest, we're in the final stretch. The ETF is about to launch. 30 trillion. Now with the capability to stack some sets. Larry Fink is going to be in the DCA army. This is wild. And the world is woken up to the fact that there's no stopping Bitcoin. And if it's not zero, it's going to 1 million. And if it's worth 1 million, then it must be good enough to be a global treasury reserve asset. Buckle the fuck up.
You know what is interesting these days? Bitcoin.
Cut. What if we get him?
Okay, guys. Eat 5 more hammers. Bitcoin! Best of luck to you. I'm Frankie McDonald. Thanks for watching on Frankie McDonald.
Hope you guys like this one. Be sure to like, subscribe, share that Sound Money Gospel. Follow us on Twitter where we're getting all the latest breaking news. Set those notifications and keep tuning in to Simply Bitcoin, your #1 source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Hope you guys are having a good one. Keep fighting the fiat Leviathan. We've got Nico with the IRL tomorrow, Simply Sessions, but we'll be coming back with some stuff Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday. Simply will be taking about a week off from this weekend over into next week, but you can still get content on Twitter. We'll still be updating, getting the news out. But YouTube, aside from shorts and maybe a couple clips in there, we'll be taking a week, recharging, refueling, and coming back to deliver that signal to you in 2024 and even go next level with it, baby. Let's do this thing. Hey, have a good one, guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, fuck you.